All right. So welcome to our first coffee hour of 2025. We are kicking off the new year here, trying to get back into the swing of things after the holidays. Some of this will probably be some review of stuff that we mentioned previously in the last coffee hour, but we'll get into it. And feel free to jump in if you have topics that you want to bring up. I think our slides probably won't take us to the end of our time, so we'll have time for discussion. Volunteer hours for 2024 are due to Claire. Individual hours can be logged via My Impact, and if you need help with that, you can ask Joe or Claire and have their Gotcha. Yeah. So if you led a volunteer group, you can send that over to our Parks volunteer email. One of us will get to it. Or send it by snail mail. Anyone have any questions about that?
You signed up for a thing and went to it?
Yeah, so that tracks it automatically. Okay. So if you were signed up for a staff-led workday, that is tracking it automatically. But this is if you had your own individual hours, you have to log that yourself, or if you had a volunteer group that was not like already on veteran. Everybody good? Okay. Upcoming training opportunities. We do not have a date for our next coffee hour yet. Probably sometime in February. And then the Certified Land Steward training is coming up pretty soon, Saturday, January 25th. So if you know anyone who wants to take that, there are still slots available. And then our Prescribed Fire training day, which is our annual refresher, will be on Saturday, March 15th. So if you were wanting to burn with us, please come to the refresher. We're really trying to make that an annual requirement now for our volunteers if they're burning to come to that refresher. And then we have some potential future safety trainings coming up. Hopefully, these are not scheduled yet. We're kind of trying to get a sense of what's possible as far as this goes. But for those who are running chainsaw work days, we're thinking of having these stop the bleed.
I think so.
Okay. It's basically like tourniquet training and how to deal with like really severe injuries. So for those running that type of equipment, it would be useful training. So hopefully we'll have offered that for our volunteers coming up. As well as potentially de-escalation and first aid / CPR, so basic first aid training in the works. Is that something that you guys are interested in? Would you want to know more about that? Does that feel useful or necessary for your purposes? With any of them? First aid, yeah. CPR. First aid, CPR. Yeah, that was kind of sense.
You sign up to be a photographer for our prescribed burn, you recommend it.
That's a good question. Probably not necessary. For photos, I don't think it's necessary. And I think what our idea is this would be not a full day for the refresher, right?
We have a partial day, and we're talking about trying to expand it to having multiple days in the future, so that if you're not available that day, there'll be other options. But we haven't settled on this yet.
With a pretty heavy hands-on.
Yes.
Yeah. And if there's any other opportunities that you all are interested in, please let us know. We're here to give you the information, knowledge that you want. So recently we've been talking a lot about chainsaw filing, sharpening chains. So if that's something that people are interested in as an idea, let us know. Anything really. We've done a lot of stuff in the past, but it doesn't matter if people are interested. So let us know what you're interested in.
Lumber sharpening that you mentioned.
Okay.
Yeah, I would, if you like got all of the county's tools together, I would come in and help sharpen them, and that way I could learn better how to sharpen on my own.
Okay.
I'm still doing that too. Yeah, and Parson.
Yeah,
Oh, cool. We could lump in a bunch of hand tools together,
Yeah,
do a training.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be helpful.
Okay.
And the fellow that was here, I think from Mud Lake,
Todd, yeah.
talked about adjusting that could be done in the brush cutters
Mhm.
to better to make them a little smoother in operating and easier to maybe post it.
Mhm.
So I think it'd be nice to
Yep.
to just kind of focus on tools.
Mhm.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And is the de-escalation training, is that something that has been requested for folks working with groups of people, or can you tell us a little bit more
What
about?
does it mean?
Yeah, so de-escalation training is something that people take in some organizations if they're going to be leading groups or working with the public. It's something that I think a lot of law enforcement are being taught now. It's basically like how to keep a situation from escalating and becoming more violent, potentially, or volatile or dangerous. Kind of how to like talk people down from being agitated.
I don't get much
conflict,
of that, do
stuff
you?
like that. I mean, I don't think we deal with it the way that like the Rangers have to take that kind of thing.
Oh,
They
right,
deal with
the
that kind of stuff. So this isn't necessarily something that someone was saying that we should have. We just sort of, as we were talking about general trainings that we need for our staff, should we also have them for our volunteers, and what might those be? So we're just, as an idea.
I wonder about doing that, like, with, if it could be done with rangers so that we could hear what they would like for us to do, like, we get a lot of, I know my dog's not on a leash, but that's because, whatever, people are talking to you friendly. Yeah. And I think it would be nice to know what our role as people who are frequently in the park, what can we do to help, not necessarily in the moment, but just in general. I see people on the lake right now that have like motorized little scooters to get out there to their fishing hole. Was that okay? Do you want me to talk to people who are fishing on the lake? What, or even, what is the schedule at which that the ranger follows, so that we would know when to connect with them in a casual way to get, because often I feel like I'm interacting with Chad at our annual kind of planning meeting, and then if there's an issue that arises, but not necessarily like to take the lens out a little bit and get an idea of, what he might expect from us as local volunteers or frequent park users. So, I don't know, I think it would be nice, but maybe in cooperation with other people, and maybe as volunteers, we would just be available for part of the time, but
Yeah, I feel maybe then not like a generalized de-escalation training, but like specific with our rangers, so we can connect on that kind of basis. Yeah, our staff could probably use that kind of interaction as well. So that's a very good point.
So maybe a little bit related to that, and I made this
Yeah.
suggestion for the handbook too, is something about how to lead a work group. There's a whole skill set to that I found, as maybe even as one of these coffees.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm actually gonna make a note about that. But I liked your edits too. Appreciate that. I know Claire's going through them right now, so.
So I find the documentation for ISM track is pretty awful. It's just videos. And so maybe another
Okay.
training on that.
Mhm. Yeah. sometimes it's a lot to take in all at once during the land steward training, and just kind of checking back in on that kind of stuff is helpful. Yeah, good feedback. And anyone that's watching the recording, anyone out there on Zoom, let us know too.
That'd be really useful in how we do our work. We've been thinking about, almost like a position description or requirements for people who don't want to leave their work days. And it could be something like, oh, you're required to attend this training, or just. That'd be really useful.
And I think our current land steward training, we've started to talk more about leading work days, and probably all of you had already gone through it before we had incorporated much discussion on that. But kind of maybe pulling that out of the land steward training and then bringing it to a format like this is something that would be useful for those of you that haven't seen that before.
Probably also just a reminder anyway. Yeah.
Yeah.
How often do you do certified land steward training?
Twice a year.
Used to do them on demand, but then we got through the demand, and now I think it's just twice.
Anything else from those on Zoom that you wanted to add? I'm going to move on, but feel free to add something else in the chat if you would like. Okay, upcoming land steward work days. We have on here Cherokee Marsh, brush cutting on January 13th and 27th. Donald Restoration Workday, January 18th, and Lower Mud Lake Invasive Tree and Brush on January 24th. Am I missing any for those who are present? Awesome. Cool. Let us know if you have any others or want us to add anything.
And I think we've had pretty good turnout for some of these when we've been able to post them on our website. Maybe it was the Cherokee. Did you get folks coming to your work days and you need to post it on the website?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
So give us those announcements whenever you have the dates set.
Robin is asking Jan if we can update the time for January 13th. Was
Yeah,
originally
we did switch it to 1 o'clock. The announcement says, you know, if you're interested, contact me in case it changes, and that doesn't change.
Gotcha. Okay. Gotcha. So it's switched to the afternoon now. So for upcoming Dane County Parks workdays, we have the Women's Workday tomorrow at Lake Farm, Thursday, January 9th. If anyone is still interested in that. Not full up, we have a good amount. And then we have a Tree and Brush Workday at Donald, Friday, January 10th and 17th. And we have our native seed packaging at local libraries coming up on January 10th as well, this Friday. I would look on our website to see which libraries. I'm not sure which one it is, but apparently there are 3 of them. And then we are in the process of having our seed weighing workdays currently. We have one on Monday that I think is going to be turned into.
I think the Monday one is weighing, and I think we're going to need to dip into the Tuesday 14th mixing day.
I think it, yeah, it switches somewhere. But
there's a lot more weighing than we were, a little bit more weighing than we were anticipating. So the mixers may end up weighing on Tuesday, and then we might have to then add a little bit more mixing time after the 14th.
You tell me, just get back from the holiday.
Yeah.
What are we doing? But yes, lots of seed to weigh and to bag and to mix, and we will be doing it on January 13th and 14th. So please feel free to join us at Libby. We're always happy for your help. And those do fill up kind of quickly, so
check.
If you're interested, check and see if there's room.
Yeah, and sometimes people have been canceling and spots open, so check back. And there may in fact be a spot open if you're really wanting to get in.
Yes. And then Tree and Brush Workday, January 21st at Camrock, and Tree and Brush Workday coming up at Hackwick Gray School House as well. So a lot of seeds, a lot of tree and brush. And as always, you should be able to find all those on our events calendar and on Better Impact.
So save the date for the volunteer summit.
Yes.
So it'll be March 1st. I don't know.
Oh, okay. So they're doing DCP 2025 challenge. Basically, people can sign up and try to go to every recreation park that's considered within the county parks in a year. And if you do that, you get a t-shirt and other things maybe. And our volunteers who have logged hours, 4 or more hours, get a $10 discount for that. So if you're interested, if you have those hours logged on Better Impact, you'll have a code that is on your Better Impact page that you can use. If you don't see it, or if you don't have it logged on there, if you want that, feel free to contact Claire and we'll figure it out. But
Yeah, but after the $10 discount, I was reading about it, it costs $55.
yes,
So, I
it's
mean,
a
what does that
$65
$50 go to? You know, is it a part of the park's fundraising or what?
Yeah, I mean, it'll go to the education program, I think, because they're the ones hosting it.
Okay.
But I don't know a lot more about it than that. I only learned about it today. So I don't know. But that is a thing that is happening if you're curious about it.
I don't even know what the volunteer summit is.
Oh, yeah. You want to talk about that too? I haven't been to one yet, so.
Yeah, so it's another opportunity to get together, get staff, pretty wide range of staff usually, and a lot of volunteers, usually at least a couple representatives from one of our many friends groups. And the format changes every year. There's usually like a keynote speaker right away, and then we might have breakout sessions to talk about different topics that are relevant to our volunteers or topics that they're interested in talking about. So I can't remember exactly the format this year, but it usually is something like a table where a certain topic is happening at this table. You talk to the staff that's leading that table, and you kind of rotate to the next table where another topic is. Sometimes we have different presentations or a choice of different presentations in the top floor and the bottom floor. Format is changing again this year, and I can't remember what they settled on, but it's some variety of that sort of thing where you get to network with staff, other volunteers and friends group members, and discuss and learn network. So
I think we're doing a little bit more of a round robin and less breakout sessions.
Okay.
I think we can.
okay.
Isn't it more than parks, it's watershed too?
Yeah, so like last year we had our system services and watershed staff there, and Michelle gave a presentation on our carbon goals for climate change in terms of storing lands to sequester more carbon. So she's not in parks, she's in our land water, and there will likely be other staff. There was talk about real estate coordinator coming to talk about our acquisition process. Not sure where they landed on that, but yeah, so it's not just strictly parks, we kind of broaden that a little bit.
Well, most volunteers are going to be.
Yep, yeah, probably mostly parks.
We still have a planning meeting to have about it.
Let's save the date.
Yes, but yeah.
I think so, yeah.
If so, it's on. It should be on Better Impact. So cool. Okay.
I believe Mary, you've given a talk at one of these in the past too.
I think I want
I
to.
sat on a panel.
Yeah, but this year, we have a baby shower for our expected granddaughter.
Oh.
All right, so on this topic, brush piles and firewood, we talked about like notification, safety, last coffee hour. This time around, we're going to kind of talk more about how to conduct your brush pile burning efficiently, effectively, and getting rid of your firewood efficiently and effectively. The only thing else I was going to say about this slide here is we have been moving a lot of wood so far this winter with the frozen ground and those good ground conditions without too much deep snow. We have not been able to keep up with the cutting up of trees at the parking lots. So if you happen to be someone that has wood in your parking lot, it would be helpful to have that cut up or to find someone that can cut it up for us. We do sometimes have OFS go out to do that, or we have staff go out and do that. But we prefer to focus on some other stuff if you all can find ways to get that cut up for us. The next slide here. This slide has more to do with how are we burning these piles effectively and efficiently. And I know a lot of you in this room on Zoom have a lot of experience burning piles. So maybe collectively we can go through this list because it is sure a whole heck of a lot harder than most people think, especially when they first start doing it. I'm seeing people smile. Yes, it's not simply just dragging a bunch of sticks and logs into a loose jumble in the woods and then thinking you're going to get it started. There is definitely a kind of a little bit of a science and a learning curve to it. And then you throw ice and snow on top of the piles and making it even a little harder to burn. So let's talk about how to burn these piles and get them gone because we need these invasives to disappear. First of all, clothing. Y'all are probably burning piles yourselves or leading groups that are burning piles. And I think it's very important that we're all dressed appropriately and that we're not wearing like nice ski parkas out there or down jackets that we're going to just totally shred up and burn holes all inside of them. And this is something we try to relay to our volunteers, and inevitably people still show up with like some pretty nice clothes. I would just encourage you that are running work days to try to make that message clear to your volunteers. They usually aren't happy when this happens, and when they're not happy, they don't always come back. So that's just a little piece of wisdom to pass on. Anything else to mention on that topic for y'all as far as clothing goes, or anything in relation to just being prepared?
You can ruin eyeglasses with irregular coating or anything if they get exposed to high heat. They say even if you open your oven, you should take your glasses off. So.
You're not the only person I've heard say that.
Yeah.
How good is that? Okay.
Yep.
The coating just
My helmet melted. Oh, the top of it pushing. Oh, it's soft up here.
I had like a head so after that, that's what I shirt.
Anything else on clothing y'all have? Preparation? Anything on preparation for the event or clothing? Otherwise, we can move on. Yeah. Yeah, so as far as going down the list here, location, we like to spend some time siting our piles in good spots, not just for protecting the trees and any sensitive resources, but also thinking about smoke direction, people coming by, roadways nearby, and then probably most often overlooked is overhead dead wood. Snags up above, branches up above that are going to catch and smolder and flame up and catch the attention of people passing by later in the daytime. So it really pays off thinking about placement of your pile. Where is a good central location, but also one that is not going to present any hazards to people, roads, or overhead snags and such. And I'm guessing that some of you, I think especially Stewart, you guys are very well informed about this kind of thing. Experienced these challenges in the past. Other stuff, as far as location goes, yeah.
I was wondering about how it needs to burn scar.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't want to put it on top of an area where for example, where you know that there's big spaces. You don't always know sometimes what's in our areas. So I struggle with that somewhere.
We just had a clump yesterday actually at Schumacher because we were building a few piles and John Kessler reminded us that, you know, those flags over there, I know they're kind of hidden, but that's where we have our plugs that we put in last year. Please don't build a pile on that. We were all like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Wrecking machine does not, don't put it here.
Absolutely. It's hard to know what's under there, but
Well, and sometimes it's right next to a tall grass curve. You got your woods and a fire break and then tall grass. You don't want to sit off another fire that you can turn into. So I don't know. I've been struggling with some of it.
right.
Even if, once you've got the, you think you've been careful and you've got the pile burning, every once in a while, look up and around because something might have happened.
We've had windy days where above there's nothing that can catch, but the wind has taken an ember, 40 feet down the woods and has cut a branch, horizontally that way instead of above the pile. So just something to consider there. And that's why we like having snow on the ground. And if you do happen to catch something and you're not even aware of it, it's just simmering in the tree. Well, it falls down in the snow and it's usually just fine. You don't have to worry about escape that way. Any other advice on placement?
Maybe just recording placement. Depends on who answers the phone, how concerned people are about where you are in the park. And I think that's true. Like in our local fire department, they've gotten so used to hearing my voice. They're like, okay, I'm like, well, I think you want to know the nearest street address to the, oh, you're not going to be on Sunset Lane this time or whatever. So I think I just as we were doing our first burn piles this year, I had to like re-go over in my head what I was going to say because depending on who answers the phone, either at Dane County or at our local fire department, the information that they want seems to shift a little bit. Whether or not they want you to call back when it's done. And I think getting kind of the message square with your reporters, the people with whom you're reporting, I guess, is something to think about ahead of making that call. So it's usually the last thing you're doing as you're going out the door.
Even within the same fire department, different people will be more strict or more lenient.
Yeah.
If a tree does catch on fire, sometimes you look at it and maybe it'll go on. Lots of times it's still burning, I know one time we called the fire department, another time Jack cut a tree down for us. Is it always kind of individual? Should we call the fire department to help us put this damn thing up? Because sometimes they're too tall.
It's situational. Sometimes we cut trees down. If it's a huge open grown oak, we don't want to do that. It's like the last thing we want to do. you know, if we have a volunteer that can stick around or check back on it, you know, that's an option. Having the fire department in the loop is a good idea, especially if you suspect that someone's going to see that and notice it and call it in. Like if it's flaming up and the light is going down and it's getting dark and people are coming home from work, like that's really noticeable. So letting them know, like, oh, hey, we have a branch of fire, but we've got snow everywhere in this park. The fire department is not going to rush out there with their lights blaring if they get a phone call. Keeping them in the loop is a very wise thing to do. So they might give you instructions once they hear that and say, okay, you're fine, just go home. Or they might have intended to stay with you a little longer until at least the flames go down. Very situational, I think. But yeah, hopefully that helps a little.
Victor had one of those backpacks with the
Okay.
yeah, like the old, I think they must have been used for car burns at one point.
Still actually.
And then he got it out. We did call just because I wanted to have the fire department know where it was. We couldn't see anything burning, and they came and determined it wasn't a problem, but somebody fell from the fire department on their way to the tree and had a pretty significant sprain of their ankle.
Oh,
So
no.
that just was like, oh, geez, we
No.
were trying to do the right thing. So yeah, poor fellow was off the crew for a few weeks while that ankle healed, and it was the job. We're trying to do the right thing, so sometimes, I don't know.
You did the right thing because we've had fire departments have to get out of bed in the middle of the night and respond to a very remote location, going up steep topography, and that is way more hazardous than a fluke occurrence where they're walking down the trail and they twist their ankle. So best to keep your fire department.
We're getting better.
Yeah.
We're burning less,
You
we're
guys do
burning
great.
more piles with less risk maybe.
I guess if we had the patience, we could say, oh, we'll watch it, but
Yes.
maybe it'll go.
Throw some snow at it.
Try to throw some snow. Yes.
Let's talk about proper construction. And I'm going to let Paul and Mary lead this one. How would you build a pile that's properly to burn it efficiently without having to pour a ton of temperatures?
We differ a little bit. What I like to do is, like, if you have a bunch of brush, lay it in the same direction is one idea. And I like to make pieces long rather than short, so they lay out flat and stand up nice. Most important concept for me is to keep that pile condensed and tight and compact. And sometimes that requires taking out the side branches, so and then you have the small stuff laying in the same direction, and then put the smaller stuff on the bottom if you can, and then bigger diameter on the top. I usually is this in the 6 by 6 by 8? Something like that.
6 feet tall, 8 feet long.
Oh, 8 feet long.
3 feet of lighter stuff on the bottom.
Okay.
That's how we've been doing it.
Yeah.
I guess with the hand.
Nice reference. Yes. There is a couple pages. Yep, there's a nice page in the handbook. Building.
Sometimes if it's really green, if I can find some nice dry dead stuff, I'll put a little pocket in there. So I remember I'm gonna try to start it here to get a good fire. As you said, sometimes they're tough to get going, especially if Fall Fest is with a drip start. I think we've had frustrating times working with that. But anything else, Mary?
not necessarily on construction, although Mike and I started by putting a tarp on the side that we think we're most likely going to start. So that we can pull the tarp off. That also creates, if you've had decent snowfall, it creates a pile of snow for you to draw from when the fire is done, when you're done burning. And then we use a propane torch to ignite. So.
Yeah, see, the only thing I'd say is that making those piles nice and tight also helps that snow, if you don't have a tarp, helps kind of keep that snow up top. And try to push it off as much as possible instead of all that snow kind of filling in all those voids and getting your whole pile kind of full of snow. It kind of makes like a little bit of a thatch roof there. So the tighter in the same direction, the tighter you can make it, the more, I don't know what that is, fuel to air ratio is really good and favorable that way. The dry kindling as much as possible at the base, it's the secret to success there.
I have a very detailed question about your technique for making it tight. We deal with a lot of small stuff because we're using lockers, pretty much the only thing we're using right now. So you can lay it out and trim it and then stack it, or I have a volunteer who will stack it and then trim it after he has all the small stuff stacked, but I'm not sure if compacting it that way.
We like to drag it to where we're gonna pile it, snap the side branches off first,
And then pile
it's nice to bring the stuff before you drag it, bring it close to the pile, because
Yeah.
you bring so much of it with you then, you know.
Yeah, we do that. It seemed to me, you know, if you're stacking it first, you've got a lot of side branches, and then get the most obvious one, and that's one third underneath.
Yeah.
But you pile.
Yeah, I think probably folks have some effective results if they pack them enough. Maybe the side branches stack up nicely too, but it does seem to work best for us to cut the side branches.
We're not too creative.
We've got a lot of side branches on honeysuckle.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, yeah, that's hard to stack straight.
That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
So it's tough.
A lot of pre-cutting before.
Right, it's been very slow.
Just to make it better pile, because I actually didn't like one of our piles the other day. It's too sprawling.
Yeah.
I'm learning, I'm turning into kind of a Nazi when it comes to brush piles. I really like to pack them in. Do a volunteer on top to make sure it's packed on. Okay. But we're teaching some of our volunteers how to do it.
Good.
And they like learning. So it gives them a new skill.
Yeah.
So consider that too as some volunteers. Give them a new skill to try it. So they aren't just cutting and dabbing all the time. That's the perfect pile.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, how about lighting it? Tips on lighting.
What fuels? We use our propane torch, which is a good thing.
Yeah, we use a propane torch that we
I
carry.
have one of those, like, big canister, it's got a hose and it's got a nozzle above that, so it's pretty, I don't know what you call those.
I think it is a torch. It's like used in.
Yeah, as opposed, you can get small ones too.
Yeah.
And that with the sets.
Oh, yeah.
Bad thing is you're burning fuel, but you can start a fire pretty easily.
And I kind of feel like it's less than the drip torch fuel. Yeah.
And not in the park. And technically, you're not supposed to be using a lot of liquid fuel.
our air regulations in Wisconsin. You're not supposed to be dumping petroleum
Mm.
piles. Should not really allow. So, the less we use, the better. And maybe propane's a cleaner way to go. But you gotta keep the tank away from the brush pile. And the hose.
And you keep the tank dry and on a sled is something that Mike told me because the cold, the air flows better if it's not cold and dry.
Oh, that's good stuff.
I don't know. I do what Mike says. Um, Yeah, we bring everything in on a sled, take it on a sled.
Cool. We'll use leaf blowers to kind of encourage it a little bit too. And typically we light kind of on the upwind side so that the flames kind of pile a little bit more. That helps to get it going. Leaf blowers are great, but then you can kind of like blow it out if you're too aggressive. So finding that right speed and that right angle is really helpful. Yeah. Anything else?
We use a method that's maybe not the most efficient, but when we cut, we just pile and don't really worry about structure or anything. And when it's time to burn, we just start a little campfire with paper, partly because City of Madison permits, there's no fuel. So paper and a match and cardboard. And then we just pull from multiple piles and put it on the fire. That way, and it works.
Kind of stack it as. Well, we're spending a lot of time on this, but it's good. I'll just kind of close out this slide by just saying put that leaf blower right on the pile. That's what we do. Speed it up, flood it with oxygen, agitate those coals, and then try to get it consumed so that we can have it out before we leave, which I know Mary and Paul are really good at that. And then once you get it down to just a little bit of coals, you got snow on the ground, you can blow those coals out into the snow. We've done that a lot with great success, or you can take the snow and put it on top of those last remaining coals just to really get it cold. So those leaf blowers really come in handy, snow really comes in handy, and there's no reason you can't burn some pretty massive piles, as long as there's no huge logs, within a day and have them out. That's the big thing, is getting them cold, because we're not allowed to leave them when they're burning, unfortunately, even when there's snow. So anything else to add on that?
So that size of the pile, like 6 by 8 or whatever it is. That size of pile is just a recommendation. Nobody's gonna come along from the county or anywhere else if you have a bigger pile.
I think in
Like-
the DNR protection area, they do have like a recommended size, which may be 6 by 6 by 8. That's maybe why we put it in the handbook. But every municipality might have something a little different. Like City of Madison might have a size. But if I ever see anyone out there with a tape ruler, like measuring,
But I've seen you guys do some gigantic wood piles, I mean, burn piles,
yeah.
which is great. But the DNR is not gonna come along and say you can't do that, right? It's
Well-
county land.
No, if it's in the DNR zone, we can, which is Northwest Dane County.
All right,
So if we did that in Northwest Dane County,
so you wouldn't do it
we're
there.
guilty.
Okay, no, I don't know. I'm thinking like Schumacher and camera.
I don't think those have size standards, but some places do. Looks massive.
Yeah.
Yep.
In my old job long ago, I used to issue the air quality advisories, the health advisories for the public. And that's in the handbook too. Don't burn the brush piles when it's an active air quality advisory. Sometimes you get those winter and virgin days, and they will issue a fine particle advisory. You really shouldn't burn. There's a lot of people that really get calls from saying, we've got an asthmatic in the household and someone with COPD or something, and it's really a big health concern. So if I were you, try to check the DNR website to make sure there aren't any active air quality advisories issued for your area. Because people really do suffer from it.
Thanks for bringing that up. Usually we get people saying, why'd you put that in there? fire.
It's very frustrating. You want to get your piles burned, but sometimes you have to stop.
Yeah.
Just like you do with prescribed burns or other things.
Yeah.
Situations change.
Would the county tell us, or we should go to the DNR?
Yeah, the DNR website will say
Okay.
ozone action day or something like
Okay.
that.
And the weather service too, it's right on there. But
Okay.
finally, after many years, they worked with us to get that. Be helpful in getting it out in public. People are used to it.
Yeah. Anything else on this before we move on? Great subject.
This pile here consumed like 2 hours.
Yeah. Yeah,
Get that sucker going.
it's
Where was that?
amazing.
Best
It's amazing. Even with our machine-made piles, as long as there's no big logs in them, we can probably triple that pile and have it gone by early afternoon, as long as we get those blowers. The blowers make all the difference.
Alright. Oh, yeah. So, as I kind of touched on earlier, we are putting in place more specific fire training standards for those who want to burn with us. As we have it right now, we are asking people to have a baseline training. So that's a one-time in your life training. We're going to be offering one with the county, and then there's equivalents like the NWCG 13190, and then we're going to accept some equivalents from other partners. So kind of as a case-by-case basis a little bit, I think, but
Ralph,
still in the works.
this is also the DNR training that Ralph has been giving for us the last several years. I think many of you have been through that.
We're going to connect it.
for equipment, so.
And then, like I said, we're going to have that annual fire refresher. So that'll be like a half day type thing. We're trying to get everyone to that every year. And then I think along with our baseline training, we're going to, or maybe we're going to do this as a refresher. I'm not sure how we decided that, but we're going to try to implement a fitness questionnaire. So just a short list of questions that people can go through just so we're all kind of on the same page of like what is required as like a baseline for what you're able to do if you're going to be on a fire line. Just so we don't have anyone who's like unable to carry a torch or walk or whatever.
Is that the first time we've done that?
Yeah,
This questionnaire?
Yeah,
I think that's a
new.
great idea.
Yes, that is.
And I think it's a great idea to have it at the refresher because people's fitness levels change
Change all
from
the
year to
time.
year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I stopped doing prescribed ones. I can't do them. My blood pressure. I just can't do it. Yeah, I think I can't keep up. It's not safe. So I do think that's a good addition.
Yeah, so there's still some details to be worked out there. This is fairly new. We're kind of hashing it out this winter, but just heads up, if you are doing fire, I know people who are doing fire, that some of those requirements are kind of being cemented now. So.
No, it's good.
Okay.
Yeah, winter seeding, the questions are starting to trickle in on winter seeding methods, and timing. And so this is the time, obviously, we just talked about weighing and mixing and all that. So this is the time when we should be planning out our seeding events. Many of our land stewards do the seeding of their sites on their own or with OFS or with work groups, volunteer groups. So as soon as we're able to get that CPU, go ahead and try to get it down as quick as possible. In a perfect world, we would have this seeded, late fall when nature is seeding. But we have to go through the whole process of drying and processing and weighing and making mixes and bagging and all that. So we're a little behind nature, but it'll work out. We have had very successful prairies seeded all the way up into the end of winter, as long as they have a few days where they can kind of settle in the soil with freezing and thawing action and get those cold, wet experience of being out there when it's raining and snowing and freezing temperatures, we've had pretty good success. We do it on the snow with our broadcasters on big ag to prairie conversions. And we have volunteer seating on slopey grounds or in wooded grounds, or we might do a combination of the two where we do a basic mix across a very large area. And then volunteers like Liz and Wendy did last year at Donald will come in and put specific mix in a specific area. We put the wet species down in the wet site last year at that Donald agricultural field, and we used to put a basic mix across the whole site. So that's kind of what this is showing us here, or one of the approaches that we might have. Top coating with bags of single species. So we would put a very uniform mix with our broadcaster equipment across the whole thing. And then actually go back a couple slides. Yeah, so just pretend like the yellow is the broadcaster that we've kind of painted the whole site with seeds, and then you might have a single bag of a single species, and then tell a volunteer to kind of go around, walk that site, put a little bit in this corner, walk over here, put a little bit over there, zigzag over here, and what you get is a pretty nice final prairie come up with more of a patchiness to it, or streaks of color, kind of similar to more what happens in nature where plants aren't super evenly distributed across the entire site, but clumped in little populations. This is usually what we do on these larger ag sites where we have a transfer available. I guess the next one.
Just put a blindfold on the person and.
Kind of, yeah. I like starting in the middle as well. If you start down in one corner, well, what's going to happen? You're going to get a lot of concentration of seed in that corner. You bring all your bags to the middle of the site. Okay, Jan, you go that way. Okay, Paul, you go that way. And you'll kind of just top coat with that single species. And target them in certain areas if they need specific environmental conditions, or just kind of randomly go around. The other approach is let's just only do hand seeding because we've got trees in the way, we've got hilly topography that our machine can't go. Well, that's a little bit of a challenge because our sites are not perfect rectangles like this, and they're very uneven a lot of the times. There's obstacles in the way and there's tripping hazards. But to the best of your ability, it's nice to line people out. So I got blue lines here on this perfectly rectangular seating area, and you try to stay distant apart from each other and walk across the site. If you can, and you can try to limit how much seed that volunteer puts out, or you save some seed behind to refill their bucket, you can then go and crosshatch it the other direction to get a nicer, more coverage of your site so that you don't have too many gaps in between. This is kind of the approach that we'd like to do, what you have done at Donald in some of those savanna areas. I think you've had pretty good success based on the coverage I see in those areas when they come up. So for the folks that are going to watch this recording or out in Zoom, you know, this is kind of the approach we take with seeding, even or maybe mechanical or hand seeding, or even just a combination of both. And then again, the seeds will be ready like sometime in next week. And let's put a plan together for how you can seed your site if you don't already have some of those plans in action or thoughts for it.
Is this for newly seeded sites?
You know, it could be for new seeded sites or top dressing sites that have already been seeded. So sometimes we go in and we get some native grasses established just to get something going, and then we'll come back over the top with forbs next year, or we might just want to diversify a site a little bit more and add more species that hadn't been seeded already. So could be for a fresh, brand new seeding or supplement.
Are you ever mixing the seed with some kind of medium like?
Yeah.
Sawyers, or I don't know what it
Yep.
is.
So we mix it back with the chaff that we spent so much time filtering off. We then mix it back. We mix it with the good stuff. We don't have the twigs or the real dusty fine material. We keep like the nice sized chaff separate and we mix that back to the seed. Or if we don't have enough chaff, which is usually the case, we run out, we'll buy like wood shavings from Farm and Fleet or something. So in the past, we would just get the seeds out and the volunteer groups would mix them on site, which is kind of a pain, but now with all the interest in seed mixing, we just do it in our Shinny Road shop together. Other questions on seeds? That might be the last slide. All right.
This is the same one that was on there last time, just continuously reminding that if anyone has any issues with better impact, let us know. Claire sent out an email pretty recently that you all may have seen with a couple of announcements, one of which was that we are starting June 1st, going to be primarily communicating using Better Impact. So you will still be getting it as an email, but you will have to have a Better Impact account to receive it, rather than the system we used before, which was the constant contact. So we're juggling two systems. It's been kind of confusing. So we are deciding that June 1st is our cutoff date of doing just Better Impact for where the emails are coming from. So people will need to have that account to be able to receive those emails. Just FYI.
I have a question.
Yeah.
For sort of outreach for new volunteers, will you be eliminating the events page, or will that remain? That's how we get our new volunteers.
Oh, you mean on our website?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the website will still be there, and everything will remain the same as far as that goes.
Okay.
It just has the links going to Better Impact. So yeah, that should be the same.
Okay.
And
Hopefully
hopefully,
it's so much simpler if someone has not volunteered before.
Right.
It's easy to scan. I find going into Better Impact, it's like, okay, what does ecological restoration mean as opposed to some other category?
sure. Yeah, so that part will remain the same on the website, so people can still go and find them that way.
Okay.
And the way it's set up right now, for most of the workdays, at least the ones that are led by staff, is that there's a link on the website to take them to Better Impact. But they still have the date and location, so they can still be aware of where it is, even if they don't have Better Impact. But yeah, the goal just being that our regular volunteers and hopefully our new volunteers will make a Better Impact account to then sign up for that event that they may have seen on the website.
Okay.
Any other questions related to that?
I have a couple questions. Can I ask you after?
Sure. Great. Okay. Oh, there we go. So that's all we had for our plan slides. We still have a better part of half an hour left. So anyone on Zoom has any questions or any topics they'd like to bring up, feel free to do so. Or in the room.
So scouts, we occasionally get scouts who are working for their Eagle Scout, and they rarely have any idea of what they want to do. They just know they need to do something. And my understanding is it has to be a project where they recruit volunteers and lead the volunteers. And most of the ones that I see and hear about, they have to do with building something, birdhouses, benches, and they build them, they get their Eagle Scout, and they walk away, and nobody So I would really like to see more restoration oriented, which still has that same risk of doing something and walking away, and we just had a recent request. So if we get these requests, can we come to you for suggestions if we don't have anything?
Please do, but we also struggle sometimes trying to find something that fits.
Yeah.
Because we might want them to remove invasives and then they want to do a building. So, yeah, come to us.
Okay. Okay.
We might also come to you if we have a scout.
Right, that's fine.
I'm working with this fellow, Tom Gilbert. I owe him an email a couple of years ago. He walked through Steward with me at a long time kind of connection at Mount State Park or one of those places where he could call up a guy and say, oh, I've got a kid with this interest. Do you have, he asked me to kind of create a list. I started to do that. Now Claire and I are gonna revise that list.
So when you get an inquiry, you can hand them the list.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And mostly Tom, because he's kind of a gatekeeper on, whatever, like, they reach out to him first to say that their intent is to be eagle. And then they meet with him to go over some potential areas. So he tries to just have some ideas for me. But we have, I think, across the county an issue with Leopold benches. Like, they like to build Leopold benches, which are really nice benches, you know. But maybe what we need the next Eagle Scout to do is to do an assessment of how many benches there are in the parks, and work with, maybe work with somebody at Dane County Parks to say, what is the ideal placement of benches? And we have some benches in Stewart that are used religiously, like at the top of a very steep hill. And we also have guests around we have people that surround our park on almost all edges, and those subdivisions that were built out in the 70s, the people that are living in those subdivisions maybe would appreciate a bench every quarter mile of trail. You know, is that too much? Or can somebody think about what we should have as a framework for those benches? But I think we all experience that bathhouses, but is that how many of those? And yeah, and the Leopold benches, that's tough. It's tough on the mowers. It's tough, you know. It's also hard to say no to a scout who's really excited about having come to that level, because they have to be 18 before they are using power tools. And so, or they have to be, you know, have gone through so much and have had so much lab time or whatever, that shop time, that they're excited about being able to deliver on that.
It's interesting.
Yeah, there's a process, and we're just not 100% sure what it is. But I know now that as individual groups, we shouldn't be putting ourselves, our land stewards aren't the beneficiary. There has to be a beneficiary listed, and it should be somebody central to Dane County Parks. And then I think the next line of communication should be with the ranger. So, yeah, it's a thing. The being ready for Eagle Scouts.
Yeah.
Do we know what their criteria are? I mean, does it have to be a physical building thing? No, it doesn't, because, I mean, could they do like monitor bats for one season or whatever, would that count?
They have to be a lot of stuff, can't they?
It can be, but there has to be, they have to be the leader
Yeah.
of the on-site work.
They need to lead a group.
They need
They
to
can't
lead a
just
group.
by themselves do something.
But
They
I
need
just
to
have
lead.
to, we have so many citizen science programs where I could assign to the Eagle Scouts, recruit volunteers, and they happen for the year, whatever. And it's even the like those days.
Mm.
You want to change the product.
They might want
Feels
something
good.
quicker and not spend the whole summer at it, but
Yeah,
it doesn't mean you can't suggest it.
right.
Yeah, I like that. Don has had his hand up for a minute here, so Don, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, I had a couple of other tips on. Can you hear me now or loud enough?
Yeah, I can hear you. It's a little fuzzy, but I hear you.
All right. On your brush pile burns, there's three things that happen that I think when you say look up for your smoke and all that, definitely look downwind 40, 50, 60 feet away if you got a real good fire going and you're going to catch, I caught a dead tree or half of a dead silver maple. It was like 60 feet in the air. It was way up there and there was no way to get it out. And the answer was, you cut the tree down. It's a maple. Oaks are a little tougher to figure out on what you want to do, but you just can't leave them burning all night. So look downwind, and that's another piece of the action. And also on starting your fire in the morning, when you got your fines and you lay it in, the one thing in the really cold winter, you think it's cold, it's dry and all that, and there's no snow down there, but there is still humidity, and the fines won't start right away. You may have to start with the 1 inch or 2 inch stuff and get that going, get radiant heat, because there's not enough sustained heat with the twigs, let's use that word, because they're like 1 hour fuel, and they'll still hold moisture in the morning. They'll be pretty wet, even though it's winter. And the last one is on the snowblower, when you're using a leaf blower to blow out your ashes on the end. Be really careful with your leaf blower, paying attention. You got people putting snow on things, and those embers will blow out like unbelievable distances. So you don't want to blow it into somebody's eyes or on their clothes or anything else, or just dust, ashes. So you're not going to set them on fire, but it can be disturbing to others if you aren't paying attention where your crowd is. Thanks.
Yeah, good point, Don. Thank you. Did you guys have more about scouts that I want to take away from that or still have? Anything else? Any projects anybody's working on they want to talk about?
When are you gonna tell us where you might want us to see? When you give the seed to us.
Yeah.
Maybe next week or the week after.
Let me. Yeah, we're still getting back to work. You will be in touch really soon. I remember making notes from a conversation we had, but I have to resurrect those.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, we've got lots of work to do.
Yeah.
But I know volunteers, some people get really excited about the opportunity to spread seed.
I believe it's all the Savannah areas getting more variety.
Yeah, that'd be nice. We
But-
talked about that in July.
Yeah.
Lost Foxwood, White Oaks, and lots of,
Oh, yeah.
remember?
Yeah. Yeah, we'll talk soon.
We did all just get back in the office this Monday, and this is our 5th volunteer event this week. So.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Let's go back to the seed spreading.
Yeah.
Where you have the center and people going
Ah,
out there and
yeah.
hold it.
Mhm.
Is that the technique just for smaller quantities of forms, or like in our situation, we had a lot of just grasses. Let's get those established, and now maybe we're gonna get forbs. Do we blanket forbs, or are we gonna go to the center and go blanket?
So that typically what that approach is big open fields. And you don't want it to be, you want to have some clustering in those fields. But I think in your situation, since you have like a grass component already pretty well established, I would like to try to get forbs everywhere we can possibly get them within that woodland no trail there. So I'm thinking more about like a uniform spreading approach for that site. Not that you couldn't do it or patching in some areas, but I was envisioning more of like get it coated evenly across the whole area. It's more bright. Whatever takes place.
So where we're working and clearing that smallish buckthorn and turkey marsh area, would it make sense to seed that afterwards? And is there something to seed it with that would help choke out the buckthorn from recurring, or would you just try to put in a good seed mix, or would you just do nothing and see what happens?
Yeah, so that area would be good since it's still pretty rough. You might even get more flushing of buckthorn in that spot. Those are the types of areas we tend to just get some of the grasses going, and build some fuel for burning, get some competition, and you can treat over the top without killing the forest. So I think we got some olive brush grass, and we can throw in some other varieties if the amount of rain is for to just get some grasses in those spots. And you can throw them in after your workday. That's kind of fun to have like a little bit of a different thing for people to do, not just cutting brush all the time. Or you can just see. So, cool.
Last time we kind of went and did a round robin, but also kind of the same people with have last time, so now we got so much that not.
Okay. Yeah.
We probably don't have anything new, so it's.
Yeah.
We weren't busy over Christmas. What do you mean? Anyone else on Zoom have anything else they want to talk about or questions while we're here?
Any news on the chainsaw questionnaire?
Yeah.
It was the one about that Claire had sent out about a chainsaw, sort of a shortage of chainsaws on some work days.
Yeah, so that was because we were not getting we still aren't getting a ton of Sawyers signing up. We've gotten a lot of responses, and it sounds like for the most part people are just either busy or have been ill or whatever. So yeah, that's about all that we've gotten from that so far. Did you have a specific question about that?
No, I did was just general information to see if maybe that had spurred some Sawyers to come out or sign up.
Oh yeah. No, I haven't gotten anyone specifically saying that it inspired them to come out, and we are kind of experiencing the same thing where we're getting only like a couple Sawyers for each of our work days. But from the responses we got, it didn't seem like people were, confused or having trouble using the system or weren't seeing the work days. It seemed like people were just kind of busy doing other things, which is completely understandable. So, yeah.
I think there was another group of Sawyers that had kind of identified a park that they were sticking with and working there kind of regularly instead of coming to the rotating group, which is great. I mean, they're out there working.
Right, yeah. A lot of people have their own specific park or parks outside of our system or whatever where they're working. So, Yeah, everything gets bad.
I
Yeah.
can think of several that fit that.
Well, I'm gonna end the recording here, I think, because I don't want to have to cut off a lot of silence at the end. But